Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Dale of Merchants Collection. This was sent to me by Sami Laakso, who is the designer and illustrator of the game. Dale of Merchants Collection is a competitive deck-building game for 2 to 4 players. You'll become an animal folk merchant, learning new techniques, trading goods, and managing your stock. First one to finish their outstanding merchant stall is the winner. Now, I've reviewed Dale of Merchants 1 and 2 before, and this is a standalone game that gives, you've got 8 new animal classes you can play, some new features, and this itself is a storage box where you can store all the other cards. So let's get down to what's new in the game and what they add is just sort of like a storage box experience. So Dale of Merchants Collection, like I said, is fully compatible with all other games in the Dale of Merchants series. You can freely mix and match the animal folk decks and other content for increased variety. I'm going to be going through the new rules because this game offers some new stuff as well as new features. But if you want to learn the base game, go watch Dale of Merchants 1 and 2, which are this episode and this episode number. Ta-da! Those will give you a look at how to play the game. But let's dive in. First off, this game has gold coins, which some of the characters use, as well as tokens. Those can be placed in setup. And there are also character cards. We'll get into these later. And trap cards, which we will also get into later. So one of the new animal groups, the wealthy Tuataras, these guys use coins. Now, whenever you acquire gold coins, you can use them to cover some or all of the price of cards. Each gold is worth 1, which means you cannot overpay with it. If the price of a card is 0 or less, for any reason, you may purchase it without using any cards or gold. So, for example, the Avid Financier, their technique is place 2 gold coins from the bank on this card. At the start of your next 2 turns, take 1 coin from this card so we can start using these to get discounts or help pay for buying other cards. Speaking of technique cards, the technique cards stay in front of you for the duration of their effect. These cards are in your schedule, and they are unaffected by other effects unless they are fully resolved. I think some of these have been covered in Dale of Merchants too, but just in case I didn't, if you ever need to search your deck and has no cards in it, it does not trigger the forming of a new deck. Here's something new. We have this clock that some of the cards play. The mongooses and the tomb bats are heavily reliant on the clock mechanic. So after you resolve a card's technique's immediate effects, you advance the clock hand by 1 space clockwise. Then, if that card had a bonus action, which is the plus icon, you get to do another action. The bonus action is always awarded on the turn it is played. And let's kind of go into how this clock comes into play. So, for example, with the Serenade card here, if it's daytime currently, you get to draw 3 cards from your hand, or from your deck, and place them into your hand. If it's nighttime, though, it would just be 1. And then again, if it's daytime, place 2 cards from your hand on top of your deck. And then certain effects, like Heroic Deed here, draw a card from your deck, but if it's nighttime, you can do another player's deck and place it into your hand. And some cards like Dramatic Romantic here, that lets you advance the clock 1 space once on your turn if you really want it to be a certain time of day. Alright, so let's get into trap cards. These are cards that you can include in the game to add more interaction between players. A trap card can be played into another player's discard pile and will trigger an effect when placed into the hand of a player that is not its owner. So, for example, Misdirection here. You would play this into another player's discard pile. You can also play it just normally as a card, or to help buy something. But in this case, whenever it is drawn and placed into the hand of another player, this effect triggers. The purple player draws a card from their deck and places it into their hand. These trap cards all have an alert icon, which means that they are done basically immediately. Insurance Fraud, the purple player takes 2 coins from the bank when this card is revealed. Storage Trip, the purple player exchanges 3 random cards from your hand with the top 3 cards from your discard pile. And Structural Weakness, discard 4 cards from your deck 1 by 1. Now, you'll notice it says return here. So what that means is once the trigger has activated, then that card returns to the appropriate player's deck. Specifically, it goes on top of the purple player's deck and can be played again in another player's discard pile afterwards. All the players have these trap cards available. You usually choose 1 to 2 and add them to your deck at the start of the game. Another new sort of addition that this game offers is character cards. And character cards can give you your own special power. So for example, Inga the Atlantic Puffin Publisher, you can spend 3 cards to draw, or spend 3 points to draw 2 cards from your deck, place one into your hand, and discard the other. You'll also notice they have a lot of lore for each one, which is kind of cool. There are a ton of these. Let's go through some of these are the simple ones. Here we have Olamidi, the Dodo Loan Taker. This character, you add 10 tokens on this card and take 20 coins from the bank. If you have 1 or more token on this card, you cannot win the game. So this guy actually has a thing where even if you have your 8 stalls, you got to take care of this condition or else you can't win. So that's something you can do during your action phase is spend 2 to remove 1 token from this card, because if you don't remove them, you don't win. But you do start with 20 coins at the start. So a little more complicated. And then here's somebody like Harman here, the North American Opossum Duelist. He can challenge an opponent to a duel. Both of you simultaneously show a card from your hand and place it in front of you. Highest value card wins. After the duel, both of you discard the cards used in the duel and draw as many cards from your decks and place them into your hands. If one of you won, the winner draws an additional card and takes 1 coin from the bank. So yeah, there are a ton of these different powers and characters. If you use these, you usually hand out 2 to each player, and then they can pick the one that they want. Otherwise, that's it. But before I go any further, let's kind of go through the new cards that they introduce. We have the Tuataras, who use a lot of coin abilities. I went kind of through the daytime and nighttime versions of these. I don't want to go through all the cards because, again, it's kind of fun to discover these on your own. The Vigorous Emperor Penguins have potent effects. Like this guy, search your discard pile for a card and place it on the bottom of your deck. Spend points to draw a card from the market deck and place it into your hand. Spend 1 to draw 2 cards from your deck and place them into your hand. Then throw away a card from your hand and discard another. They let you pay points for different powers. We also have the Enthusiastic Wood Turtles, which let you do stuff with the finish keyword. So finish 1, draw a card from your deck and place it into your hand. What finish means is when you play a technique card that has the word finish, you place it in your schedule and resolve any effects that precede finish. Then you may spend the amount listed after finish, in this case 1 point, to resolve the card. So other cards might say, like Insight here, draw 2 cards from your deck, place them back in any order, then finish 2. Once you spend 2, you can draw 2 cards from your deck and place them into your hand. Mischievous Tasmanian Devils, these guys are all about messing up your opponent's plans. This one is discard 2 random cards from another player's hand 1 by 1. That player draws 2 cards from the deck and place them in their hand. Shameless Rummage, draw 3 cards from another player's deck, place any of them on their discard pile, and have them shuffle the rest into their deck. All about chaos. The Swindling Black-Headed Gulls are all about gifting junk. They're all about placing cards in other people's discard piles. This, however, will make the game slightly slower, but so here, draw. Oh, this one doesn't really show it, but like here, for example, Goodwill Presents. Place 1 junk card from the junk pile on up to 2 other players' discard piles. Shaky Enterprise. Take the top 2 cards from your discard pile. You can place 1 on another player's discard pile. Place the rest on top of your deck in any order. They're about clogging other people's decks up. And finally, we have the Fickle Giant Pangolins. These guys actually use the special dice. And they're all about causing destruction. So, in this case, the Fumbling Dreamer, you would roll the dice. In this case, they're not the same. If they were the same, you'd re-roll. Then you would take a card from a player's top of their discard pile and put it into their hand. Another dice card is the Loose Marbles. You roll the dice and place the card from any player's source into a different player's destination. So if it was the same roll, it would be you would take a card from somebody's discard pile and put it in another player's hand. So yeah, that's all about a little more chaotic. Otherwise, it's the same game as before. You're buying cards into your deck to try to make stalls, and whoever does so wins, provided your character card, which are optional, does not get in the way of your victory. And that's it. So this is another solid entry in the Day of Merchants line, which I've always enjoyed playing. And then I didn't actually show this, but this box is a nice way to store everything as well. I appreciate that it also comes with these nice dividers. It comes dividers for all the cards that already exist, not just the ones that are in the game. So that's very handy if you've been collecting these already. And then it also comes with a randomizer deck if you want to, like, you know, randomize which animals you use. But let's get into the mechanics of the game. First off, the traps mechanic. I'm not actually that big on them. I think it's a fun idea in theory, but all it really amounted to was, oh, I drew this card in my hand. Okay, purple player or blue player, you get to do a thing. And it actually kind of makes the game easier in a not interesting way for me. So, not huge on that. The character powers, though, were more welcome, although I didn't feel like they were absolutely necessary. But I think they add more variety to a game that already has tons of variety. So that's good. The clock is a neat idea, but it's annoying to manage. Every single time you use a technique, you gotta turn that hand. It's very distracting. Considering only 2 of the animals in this set anyway even used the day-night mechanic, I would have rather, I don't know, the clock turning be done by those cards themselves, which again, some of them do. But instead of turn it after each technique, it's a chore. The gold, I really liked that addition though. I enjoy collecting this additional resource that you can use to help buy cards or activate abilities. That was a welcome touch. Let's get into the cards. Besides the day-night cards, which I thought were fine, my least favorite new animals, as usual, are the ones that are more chaotic. The ones involving dice or causing havoc, like the Tasmanian Devils and the Pangolins. It just is too much for what I think is a nice, elegant game. But, you know, it can spice things up a bit, I suppose. The Tuataras with their gold and the black-headed gulls with junking up other people's decks were my personal favorites, although I did really like the Emperor Penguins and the Wood Turtles as well. Overall, though, another very solid entry, and finally, a nice way to collect all the cards in one box, which not all card games have, but should have. Even if I'm not a fan of every single new mechanic, I appreciate just how much thought was put into all the new components to give you an even wider variety of objects to change up the gameplay. I think you could honestly just start out with this, and if you like what you see here, or if you like what you play of this, then you can start collecting all the other Day of Merchant stuff, because this is a solid set to start with, and it has everything you need for storage. So I would start with this, and then go out and get other packs as you enjoy them, like the first and second, which I've already reviewed. Or if you already have them, this is a no-brainer. If you love the game, this is just more good stuff, and even more variety as well. So yeah, another solid entry in the line.